You do look to be in great shape. How is the training camp going? Because we see the 30-second clips with Rafael Cordero and your whole team, but could you give us a little more insight into how things are going?
I'm doing great, but my body is shit right now. I'm sore, I'm really sore.
Sure, he's 100, but G looks good.
Yeah, man, he's looking really, really good. I'm definitely a little bit crazy, and I'm definitely a little bit scared.
Just 2 months removed from his headline-grabbing clash with Jake Paul, Mike Tyson appears to be in a troubling state. The man who once terrified opponents with a single glance now seems lost in the post-fight fog, clinging to relevance in a world that's moved on. Startling footage has surfaced showing a visibly heavier Tyson, though sadly, the added weight isn't from muscle or training. Fans everywhere are starting to ask the tough questions. What's really happening to the former king of the ring? Is this just aging, or is something deeper going on with the boxing legend?
Just that head movement and inside is just wild.
Everything. And the power. It was just, that's what you wanted to see from a heavyweight. So that guy is still alive, and he still remembers all these moments.
In the wake of a comeback that promised to be legendary but instead left the world second-guessing his legacy, Mike Tyson's post-fight reality has been anything but glorious. The myth of the baddest man on the planet now feels like a distant memory. Instead of walking tall in victory, Tyson seems to be chasing quick paydays while battling a haunting sense of regret. The man who once ruled boxing is now watching his name slowly get swallowed up by spectacle. His physical decline mirrored the emotional toll, the whole event unraveling just like his stamina that night in the ring. What was meant to be his triumphant return is starting to resemble a bloated, disappointing epilogue.
Mike Tyson, people talk to. There's certain people that are just crazy, man.
Well, these people that think that he don't stand a chance against Jake Paul, that are like, this shouldn't even, like, because he's too old. I was like, I think you're crazy.
There was a time when just hearing the name Mike Tyson was enough to freeze the blood in any opponent's veins. He wasn't merely a fighter, he was a storm, a violent, unrelenting force of nature that turned every ring he stepped into a war zone. Opponents didn't just lose to Tyson, they were destroyed, often in under a minute. He didn't play the game, he was the game. The bell rang, and within seconds, it was over. That was the Tyson the world feared. That was the man who defined brutality and dominance in its purest form.
Mike Tyson tweeted that he almost died over the summer. He said, he had a bunch of blood transfusions, just had to fight to get healthy, and then his performance yesterday against Jake Paul. Just your thoughts on what we saw.
Mike Tyson was right, and I was wrong.
Now fast forward to November 15, 2024, and the Tyson we see is tied to a very different narrative, one of decline, of internal struggle. His much-hyped bout with Jake Paul wasn't just a clash of fists, it was a symbolic collision between eras, egos, and expectations. It wasn't just about a fight, it was about identity, about legacy, and about reckoning. And in the aftermath, fans were left grappling with the brutal realization, even icons, even titans like Tyson, eventually stumble. The fight served as a loud and painful announcement that the chapter is closing on one of boxing's most storied careers.
Welcome home, Iron Mike Tyson!
What unfolded that night wasn't the Tyson we idolized. This wasn't the primal wrecking ball that once sent fear cascading through locker rooms. Instead, it was a nearly 60-year-old man, one who had already stared death in the face earlier in the year, trying to summon what was left of his fire. Across from him stood a man young enough to be his son, a YouTuber who had morphed into a fighter with speed, stamina, and a massive audience. It didn't feel like a fair battle. In truth, it felt more like a carefully staged performance, a nostalgic spectacle that ended up exposing the toll that time takes on even the fiercest warriors.
Last day and was ready to kill everybody on the boat because he had to jump in with all these sharks again in the middle of Florida. And he's like, this fucking asshole says that, he cares about me and everything else. I've been fighting since I was 12. And he throws me in the fucking ocean with a bunch of shit.
As the fight unfolded, it became clear that Tyson was fighting not just Jake Paul, but also the inevitable decline that comes with age. Paul moved with the vigor of youth, while Tyson appeared slow, his movements labored, his timing off. He tried to find his rhythm, to channel the ghost of the monster he once was, but it wasn't there. The power that had once ended fights in seconds now flickered, dim and inconsistent. It was heartbreaking to watch. Tyson still held his iconic aura, But his body told a different story of war, and of a man desperately clinging to the last remnants of what made him great.
You know, but the day after the fight, I woke up and told my wife, why did I do that?
The emotional fallout from that night was undeniable. Tyson, once the embodiment of confidence and dominance, seemed to unravel in the days that followed. The mental toll of stepping back into the spotlight at 58 was immense. Even he began questioning the wisdom of the decision. In an emotional confession, Tyson admitted, "The fight was such a big ascent. We were so up and high." Those words revealed more than any punch could. They revealed a man who had flown too close to the sun one last time and now found himself scorched by the aftermath.
Was by its nature a horrible fight, right from the start. It was just awful.
The morning after the fight, Tyson's vulnerability was on full display. "I woke up and told my wife, 'Why did I do that?'" he revealed. That simple question spoke volumes. It wasn't just about the physical pain or the exhaustion. It was about regret. It was about a man who had spent his entire life chasing a form of greatness that the world no longer seemed to recognize. In later interviews, his tone turned reflective, even somber. It became evident that Tyson wasn't just dealing with the outcome of a fight, he was grappling with the existential weight of no longer being the man the world once feared.
Jake Paul and Mike Tyson now have been suspended from boxing.
Tyson's return to the ring wasn't just another sporting event, it's been an emotional roller coaster drenched in controversy and soul-searching. On December 9th, during a deeply honest conversation, Tyson admitted he had been feeling a little bit depressed in the weeks following the fight. But it wasn't just about losing. For Tyson, the stakes were always higher than wins and losses. This was about identity. About purpose. About trying to figure out whether the world still had room for someone who once reigned supreme and now had to watch as others took his place.
Judge David Yakubuchi sees the contest 80-72, while judges Lawrence Cole and Jesse Reyes see it 79-73, declaring your winner by unanimous decision, Jake El Gallo!
The aftermath of Tyson's so-called comeback may have landed harder than any punch he took in the ring. What was billed as a celebration of resilience and legacy turned into something far more tragic, a public reckoning with age, ego, and irreversible change. Jake Paul, the provocateur and disruptor, walked away with the win, while Tyson was left holding the fragile remains of his legacy. At 58, he wasn't just an aging athlete, he was a man confronting the relentless march of time. And yet, the spectacle still delivered from a business standpoint. Over 108 million viewers tuned in on Netflix, smashing viewership records. The hype was real at Tyson, the living legend, facing Paul, the brash new blood. In the opening minutes, fans got a glimpse of the old Tyson. The crowd roared as he threw punches that echoed his past. But by the second round, reality caught up. The power was fading, the footwork slowed, and Paul began picking him apart. It was no longer a storybook ending. It was a warning about what happens when glory is pursued past its expiration date.
And we wouldn't be here today without him. This man is an icon, and it's just an honor to be able to fight him. And he's obviously the toughest, baddest man on the planet, so.
As the rounds progressed, the gap between the two fighters became impossible to ignore. Paul maintained control from start to finish. His speed, stamina, and strategy overwhelmed Tyson, who could no longer rely on the power that once made him unstoppable. By the time the fourth round came, the tone in the arena shifted. This wasn't a contest anymore. It was a somber realization, shared by all in attendance, that time had caught up to a once immortal warrior. There were no knockouts, no miracles. Just a painful, undeniable truth: Father Time had landed the final blow.
58, a lot of people thought you shouldn't be here. A lot of people thought you'd be done and dusted in the first round. Do you feel like you proved the world wrong, that you could at least go 8 rounds with a younger man?
I didn't prove nothing to anybody, only to myself.
Jake Paul walked away with a unanimous decision, the judges scoring it 80-72, 79-73, and 79-73, a clean sweep that left no room for argument. There was no controversy in the numbers, only clarity. But what was clear on paper came at a devastating price for Mike Tyson. The loss didn't just tally another L on his record, it cracked the foundation of his legacy. And to make matters worse, whispers of a leaked fight script began circulating within hours. Fans began to question what they'd actually watched, a real fight or a scripted spectacle that prioritized drama over true boxing.
What do you have to say to the critics that brought that up?
Oh no, I don't remember the fight that much. I kind of blanked out a little.
Did you watch it back or anything, or no?
I never watched the fight. No, I haven't.
For Jake Paul, the fight was nothing short of a milestone, a moment that cemented his bizarre journey from YouTube personality to headline boxer. But for Tyson, it was something else entirely. It was painful. Humbling. A bitter pill he had no choice but to swallow in front of the entire world. For every cheer Jake received, Tyson faced another echo of the past, reminding him of how far he'd fallen from the top.
And I watched the guy's face, and I watched that confidence bleed from his face.
Yeah.
Instantaneously.
Yeah.
The defeat wasn't just visible on the scorecards, it screamed through every slow, weary step Tyson took. Every punch he threw lacked the bite, the venom, the fire that once defined him. You could see it in his breathing, in his posture. This wasn't the Mike Tyson we knew. The fight may have ended when the final bell rang, but the disappointment continued long after, etched into every moment of Tyson's post-fight demeanor.
It wasn't about what he had left at 58, it was what maybe he might have, and the image, the scary guy, the guy that's gonna eat your children, the guy who's the baddest man on the planet.
In a startling admission, Tyson later revealed that he blacked out during parts of the bout. The last thing I remember is Jake bowing in the ring, he confessed. Imagine that, the most feared man in boxing history, now unable to fully recall the final moments of his own comeback. But let's rewind. Iron Mike isn't just a nickname, it's a part of boxing lore. With ferocious power and a take-no-prisoners style, Tyson tore through the heavyweight ranks like a wrecking ball. At just 20 years old, he made history in 1986 by demolishing Trevor Berbick to become the youngest heavyweight champion ever. That victory wasn't an outlier, it was the opening chapter of an era defined by fear, speed, and destruction.
5 million and 40 million?
I think 20 and 40. Yeah,
20 and
I think that's
40.
what I'd heard. You know, which I'm happy Mike got the money, and I'm happy that he didn't get hurt. That was my fear, that it was going to be a real fight and he was going to get hurt.
You've known him for a long time. I've known him for a long time.
Tyson's legacy was built on devastation. Of his 50 professional wins, a jaw-dropping 44 came by knockout. Even more shocking, 24 of those came in the very first round. He didn't just beat opponents, he overwhelmed them before they had a chance to react. And when he became the first boxer to unify the WBC, WBA, and IBF heavyweight titles, it was clear Tyson wasn't just winning, he was rewriting history. But that same legacy now stands at a crossroads. The fight with Jake Paul didn't just split judges, it split fans. On one hand, loyal Tyson supporters saluted him for stepping into the ring at all. For them, the courage to compete outweighed the outcome.
I don't know. Maybe his brother.
You want to fight Logan? Logan, I think he said you might be next.
I'll kill you, Mike.
The numbers don't lie, 44 knockouts out of 50 wins. 24 of those in round 1. That was Tyson's terrifying brand of dominance. His fights weren't contests, they were executions. No opponent was safe, and every match felt like a countdown to destruction. He held 3 world titles at once, carving his name into boxing's Mount Rushmore. But today, that legacy feels complicated. Tyson's return has left fans and experts deeply divided. Some see him as a warrior refusing to quit. Others see a legend tarnishing the very myth that made him immortal. The split is real, and the tension cuts deep.
Wasn't the Tyson-Jake fight, wasn't that amazing?
Yeah. It's amazing they got paid so much money for that.
And then there's Jake Paul, possibly the most polarizing name in modern combat sports. Is he the fresh face the sport needs, or is he the embodiment of its slow decay? Some hail him as proof that boxing can evolve, adapt, and market itself to a new generation. Others call him a fraud, more spectacle than substance. Either way, one thing is certain, after defeating Mike Tyson, Paul's stock in celebrity boxing has skyrocketed. But that win didn't just inflate his ego. It reignited the burning question, What is boxing becoming? Let's address the uncomfortable truth. Should a 58-year-old man, even one as legendary as Tyson, be taking punches in a sanctioned fight? Many argue it crosses the line into danger, and watching Tyson labor through each round gave weight to those concerns. This wasn't just another loss. It was a sobering reminder that no amount of legacy can shield even the fiercest warrior from time's brutal march. And now, here we are watching the aftermath unfold in real time. Tyson's legacy, once as clear-cut as his knockouts, is now clouded with questions. Rather than stepping away, Tyson's already setting his sights on Logan Paul. Yes, Logan Paul. After a bruising defeat to Jake, he's pivoting to challenge another influencer-turned-fighter. It's a move that has left fans both puzzled and concerned. Is this about redemption or desperation? Some critics say it's just about the paycheck. And sure, celebrity fights pull in ridiculous money. But let's not kid ourselves, Tyson doesn't need the cash. He's a multi-millionaire. No, what's driving this is something far more human, the inability to let go. There's an addiction to the spotlight, a hunger to feel relevant, to feel feared, just one more time. Tyson may not be chasing dollars, he's chasing the ghost of who he once was. So, he calls out Logan Paul, and the machine starts again.
I believe that he was making the money he says he's making. Showtime Boxing wouldn't have gone out of business, and Showtime would have made sure they kept paying him.
But here's the catch: how much of his legacy is Tyson willing to sacrifice in this pursuit? This is a man who's endured unimaginable highs and crushing lows. And now, instead of riding off into a well-earned retirement, he's starting the cycle all over again, another fight, another gamble. The truth? Every time he steps into that ring now, he risks rewriting history, not by adding to his greatness, but by dimming it. And this comeback? It's about more than Tyson. It's a commentary on boxing itself. We have to talk about what the sport has become. Yes, the pay-per-view numbers are massive. But the soul of boxing? It's on life support. Where are the true contenders? The next Ali? The next Tyson? Instead, we get Instagram beefs turned into main events. Tyson's loss wasn't just a personal defeat, it's a warning sign. Boxing isn't just evolving, it's unraveling.